Hi, everybody. I drove up Highway 38 to come here today. I think all the bear are now living on my property, so I'm not nervous about hitting them anymore. I'm nervous about bumping into them. I'm going to read two poems from Hooked this evening, and I think it's probably the very last time I will ever read. Well, I shouldn't say the very last time, but maybe it'll be the very last time that I'll ever read simply from Hooked, because I'm working in new material now, and it's time that I leave these 7 fabulous women behind a little bit more. The first poem I'm going to read is the aforementioned poem regarding Unity Mitford. It's called The Luckiest Girl in the World. Unity Valkyrie Mitford, August 8th, 1914 to May the 28th, 1948. The first time I saw him, my hand shook with such a violence the tea spilled. He spoke so calmly in the osteria. It was June. He sat with friends beneath the pergola. Still it was, as if the world did not revolve around him. They said I'd always been a serious, awkward girl. He made me beautiful. I sat at his feet and he stroked my hair. Never been so happy in my life. There is a bullet in the middle of my brain. Now, please tell me who I am. Conceived in swastika, named Unity Valkyrie, what else did they expect of me? Favre read one book. It was so good, he never read another. Muv had 7 babies, only 1 a boy. We girls were not allowed to go to school. There was the library, Nanny Bloor, the governesses. We had no need for more. I loved Harrod's Zoo. Bought a snake, a rat, and a salamander there. Favre fetched a pony home in a taxi. It was jolly good fun. When we were short of money, Muv gave up napkins. We were not to let the food touch our lips, the sound of tines against teeth at every meal, and me loading in the matches and the chalks, my teeth so brown and strange they looked like Stonehenge. Muv raised chickens to pay for the governess, and Favre went prospecting in swastika. From Batsford Mansion to Astle Manor to Swinbrook House to Old Mill Cottage. That's how it was with us Mitfords. We were debutantes. Decca and I had a language. She was my bowed, I was her bowed. She said I was ooge and objectionable. We would argue to tears, and then she'd shout, "Gomit it," when she'd had enough. I really did my best. I wanted so badly to die there in the Englisher garden in the calm afternoon of summer on a bench at the end of the path. Diana, most beautiful of sisters, took me to the Parteitag. She was in love with Oswald Mosley, and I was just 19. There were hundreds of thousands at Nuremberg. My body was electric, the Führer's splendor pouring through me. I was an angel in Bavaria. In the photographs before, I hid my teeth. Nothing caught my attention until now. Muv was pleased. A finishing school in Munich, such a good idea for her Bobo. I learned the language swiftly because the Führer knew no English. I could do the salute everywhere, that arm clicking up to the sky like a warm machine. Even my heels were eager, my lipstick bright as flame. They said that Jews were being beaten. Jolly good, serves them right. We should go and cheer, I said. I found out what he liked, where he ate, and I ate there too, at a table by myself, book in hand. Muv made me come home for a rest. I shared a room with my bowed, her side littered with the Daily Worker. Mine had swastikas on the wall and photos of the Führer framed. Decca said she would hide a pistol in her pocket just to shoot him dead. At the parties and balls, I played yo-yo and carried sweet Ratular on my neck. I talked about my friends, how Julius Stryker brought the Jews up from the cellar and had them eat grass. But darling, he was a kitten, Diana said. Such a sweetheart with his shining head, some kind of jewel. I think he loved me, Stryker. There were many likely men in Munich, those darling storms, but I waited only for my Führer would have done anything he asked. February 9, 1935. When he came in, I saw him glance my way. How many times had he seen me there, cream cakes on the table, my solemn eyes? Dotelmoser came and asked if I would care to join them. I walked over, and the Führer stood up and saluted. He shook my hand and introduced me to the others. I sat there for more than half an hour. I don't remember all the things we spoke of. I said he should come to England. He said he'd love to, but perhaps it was unwise. There might be a revolution if he did. Had I ever been to Bayreuth for the Wagners? No, I said, but I should like to. He told his men to remember this next time. He knew London from his architecture studies, loved Cavalcade best of all films, said how good the roads were in Germany, and then he signed a postcard to Fräulein Unity Mitford as a friendly memento of Germany and Adolf Hitler. He paid my bill and left. I'm the luckiest girl in the world. He's the greatest man of all time. I'm a big blonde girl with a big blonde body, and I want no one touching it. I like to wait, and when rewarded by a meeting, my heart rises up like a zeppelin. All the banners waving and the anthems, the crowds of lovely marching boys in step. I talked to him about difficult things, about how people still supported Jews, or how they didn't believe everything the Führer said. I worshipped him. There was no one else. I was never a nice girl. I made party members disappear. I made them all frightened of my words. I talked and talked. 140. That was the number of times I met with him. In all those busy years, I don't know how he ever found the time. And his smile when he saw me, his face would melt with tenderness. Diana saw it too. You two here, he'd say, and he'd be happy. With him, we went to the Olympics, to Bayreuth. His favorite was Parsifal. We'd sit next to Ava. The looks she'd give me? She didn't understand. It was never like that between us. We talked sweetly about pets and music. I didn't like it when he talked of cars, but there was much we had no need to discuss. I made it crystal clear in my letter to Der Stürmer, if you have room in your paper for my letter, please publish my name in full. I want everyone to know I am a Jew hater. Mav and Favre ordered me home for the summer. I had their full attention now. When I came back to Munich, Mav met the Führer. Of course, she found him charming. And Tom was content, saluting everywhere. Decca was a communist. Diana was a fascist. Nancy was a volunteer. Debo had a wild time with young boys at the Ritz. Tom was a brown shirt. Pam opted out. Favre hated the beastly Hun. Mav thought them marvelous. And then there was Austria, Sudetenland, Poland, those panzers rolling in and the beautiful storms dying. Everyone was leaving. They begged me to go home, but I believed it would never come to blows. Our two great nations always meant to be together. But on the 3rd of September, the consulate called me round. They handed me a telegram saying it was war. I no longer knew what happiness was. I wrote a letter. I send my best love to you all, and particularly to my Baude. And I drove to the Englischer Garten. It was beautiful there and so green. I put my little silvered gun against my temple, and I pulled the trigger. Mav said I was the first casualty of the war. Now I have a bullet in my brain and a shattered heart. My Fuhrer came to see me in the hospital. He brought flowers, said he'd pay all the bills, that they were to care for me. Care. I put my party badge deep in my mouth and swallowed that golden possibility. I tried again and again, but nothing worked, and they sent me home on a train. I called the sugar chocolate, the salt I called tea, but we were so happy, the three of us, just Muv, Farv, and me. Incontinent and clumsy, impatient and angry, I had no concentration. I limped and staggered. I spilled and dropped my food. Farv could not bear to see me eat. He shouted at Muv, and then he just packed up his things and moved away. Muv hired a daily to wash my sheets each morning. I biked around the village singing hymns. I became a Christian Scientist, loving God as sweetly as a child. Reporters hated that I looked so well. I went to Debo's wedding, and my gloves were very clean. They couldn't see beneath my fringe, the scar a sort of wormhole. They said I should be put away, like Diana, like Mosley. I was despised. Everyone came to see me except my bowed, my Decca. She lived in America, and they wanted to pay her money, but she never told a soul my story. I was her huge, bright adversary, she said. Decca had a baby who died. Debo's baby was born dead. Diana had 4 babies. Tom died in Burma, one of the last casualties of the war. I was all alone with Muv, and she was good to me. Never lost her temper once, though she missed Farv, and I was beastly all the time. That old bullet started rumbling in 1948. When I looked up and said, "I'm coming," Muv's heart sank. I had a seizure. That night I died at last. No one had ever had such a happy young life as I did, up until the war. And the last poem I will read tonight, I have looked forward to reading in Ottawa for many years. And in fact, I am very happy to have been invited to this tree series, which I've looked forward to as well for many years. Thank you very much, everybody, for dinner and for this wonderful reading, for the fabulous open reading. It's an excellent series. When I was a little girl, I lived here in Ottawa. In the summers, we rented a cottage in the Gatineau Hills. It's one of my favorite parts of my life. I loved that place so much. And there was a little sign on our driveway. And I thought, how nice of the neighbors to put up a little sign welcoming us as renters. It said "Smart." I thought, wow, that's so kind of them, you know. We were just there for 2 summers. Years later, I looked at the biography of Elizabeth Smart and realized it was her childhood home. They called it The Barge. So this is a poem for a woman who shares the same last name as me, went to the same school as me, and in fact lived in the same house as me, and we are not related and never met. The poem is called Ardent. Elizabeth Smart, December 27, 1913 to March 4, 1986. Life is murder, and art is even worse. Do I dare to plunge into this journey? Put on the clarinet quintet in A. Let Mozart help me through. I find as many answers there as anywhere. A happy little pill unwinds me. What I remember best is Kingsmere, my truest paradise. I recognize each rock and root, the path unwinding to the boathouse, the leap of leopard frogs against the still midday, the dark, cool water of the lake. Storms roil beyond the waving mapled hills, and up through pines to where I crouch the creaking lovely floor to clip my fashioned paper dolls and memorize the genus of each blessed simple thing. Implicit ferns unfolding in the shade, mouths of giant pike, their googly eyes, the mountain, its mental sweetened air. Nighttime, the humped raccoons beyond the walls creep past my torpid bedstead, the empty, sighing lounge chairs, stains of misplaced highballs, feather ticking, dawn. In the fall, back to Ottawa for the smarts. The chill air on Beechwood, green stiff skirts of uniforms, my sisters and I walking through the darkened Elmwood doors, good girls, all of us. I love to see the youngest ones at play in the wooden toy house near Springfield, the door so small you'd wonder how a baby could pass through, perfect housewives practicing. The sound of wails at night in winter, Mummy adrift in snow, or pacing on the balcony, or rolling round the bathroom floor, my sister Helen's dress torn off, her tender breasts exposed, face slapped, and baby Russell crying, a small body sobbing in a bed of maple leaves. Daddy read his lawyer's letters and laid truth down like matting. This is how we lived, and we were lonely. My God, the hell of Ottawa. There's never been a place so dismal. Bloody invitations at the après-ski, an afternoon of skating up at Rideau Hall, the Little Theatre evenings. Then London, where Jane and I were sovereigns. I'd forage every alley for something crammed with meaning, anything relentless, captivating, whole. I knew one day I'd find it, knew it in my bones, my sex. We lived the life that Mummy never did, and when she came to town, her balm would sweep us in, her lovely smell, her underwear, her shopping sprees. She was warm, extravagant, delicious, and then she'd turn to me and say, "I've hated you all day. You're the meanest little thing. Any child could write this drivel. I must marry a poet. It's the only thing." All these summers Kingsmere, a private lovely life with leaves and earth, wild geese and Dutchman's breeches, hepaticas and bloodroot, bird song, the smell of mornings after rain. Pleasing mother, being self, my body but a seam that rips from end to end. Huge diversions of the upper class, dress-up parties at the King Estate, dancing on our screen verandas. My journals overflow with incantation, bucking back the emptiness with language. One day, in Better Books in Charing Cross, I found the poems of a man named Barker and told the world that I would marry him. This is what I want: art, love, and children. Do not stoop to offer less than everything. Waiting for the bus in Monterey, I changed my lipstick often and considered what the future held. His wife climbed down, so thin and shy, so dark against my shining head. I must be radiant, aglow on fire. We drive to where we live nearby in huts. George Barker's hand on mine, his arm against my nipple, the whole world rocking. I try so hard to be polite until he comes upon me in the water, and now I love the night, the legs of children, tall poinsettia, hydrangeas and the lemon trees. I love the residential palms that dress in pantaloons. I love the birds and pepper trees, the sun on swimming pools, the multitude of kisses, never enough skin to sate me. It is no surprise I am arrested at the Arizona border because he is my love and I am his. Who cares for his English class awareness, prissy wife? Can there be life or breath apart from this? In the mornings, I'm ill with child at Pender Harbor. I write my book, Desire Made Flesh and Rhetoric. By Grand Central Station, I sat down and wept, was birthed 2 weeks before Georgina. I do not mind my child a bastard. It will help them to avoid the bores, the snobs, the petty, the afraid. I had 4 in total, my darlings, all my dreams. We live with nothing, yet I smocked their clothes, made nettle soup, held honeyed bodies in my arms, bleached nappies in the dark, wiped noses, rode them here and there upon my bike smoked and drank and wept, and George would come and leave his seed behind, but never any cash or caring, just an Ottawa allowance. And I lived so far away in farms in England or wherever costs were few, a low, wet cottage in the Irish hills, bed-sits in London, barnyards, attics. Oh, beloved friends, oh, stagger me with cases, bottles clunking well into the weekend drunk. George, I beg you, I am so afraid of wind, the empty house, the air raids, burglars, lunatics and ghouls, catastrophe, appearances, and death. You must do something, for I'm simply going mad. You are my husband and my one true love, no matter how many other wives post you their midnight dreams. Georgina, Christopher, Sebastian, and then Rose. The womb's an unwieldy baggage. Who can stagger uphill with such a noisy weight? To send the children to good schools with clean and decent clothing, lots of books. I worked Queen, worked Vogue. I was the best copywriter in the city, sat at desks, sniffed glue, held phone, typed hard, took drink, wrote fast and funny, hard and real, scurried through the filthy streets, harassed by deadlines, took pills, the crystal clear dependency, bloody sharp, that focus. I ground my teeth, put my feet up on the weekends, wellies on the workbench, dead soldiers piling up below. What is left of my youth rushes up like a geyser as I sit in the sun, combing lice from my hair. How to survive life's script? You pray and bang your head, be beautiful, wait, love, rage, rail, look, and possibly, if lucky, see, love again, try to stop loving, go on loving, bustle about, rush to and fro. Whatever you say will be far less than truth. I saw my children off to life and turned alone back down the bitter lane. BBC sonatas in the kitchen, empty page. I am desperate from hating, pushed too far to do too much. But then the strangest thing, my little book revived, and I'm famous. The heady stuff of praise and recognition sets me restless and all a tremble. There is money, and I fix a place to live and work a garden there, crawl on my hands and knees upstairs to bed. Why not? Tricks, sleight of hand, anything it takes. And in the mornings I rise and toil amidst the pits and rumblings of the earth. How dear it is to birth a flower, hold a cutting, name a thing. And they wind quite round about me, like my children always did. I begin a poem here and there, small things, a flutter more than most. Then Rose takes up the needle, so I hold her children too. Death by misadventure, so they said. We buried Rose. When one's own heart child goes to death, what's left? Nothing wards, no language. Why did I not tell her what I knew? The long bitterness of life, the mean, the ungenerous, the need to forge capacities for pain. George has many children. What's one less? The one he laid his hands on seldom, gone for good. Life is the roll of matter heaving into heaven in its painful individual way. They asked me back to Canada to talk about the craft. I drank away the bleak lot where I lived. Friends turned their heads in fear and bald disgust. The late-night coffee shops and men, the vomit on the rugs. And home at last, clematis everywhere and rain. Worm was my best beast friend. Mud was my first love. I adore this twisted acre and lie in bed remembering, calling out in sleep for Mummy. What these nightmares bring me to, I dread. When these pills kick in, I open up my head to memory and fear, whole notebooks filling late at night with writing near impossible to read. But it is there. You find it if you can. Make from it all whatever books you wish. Thank you.